Okay. I'm going to try to tackle a few things, just a few thoughts I've been having about the nature of things, the state of things. Because time is short. Time is short because there's a depletion of heat. As heat depletes, it creates time. As heat depletes, as it equalizes across an expanse or between pressure extremes, there's conflict. It creates war, it creates storms, it creates chaos. It creates an event. And that event is essentially force seeking its end. It's seeking its the culmination, the final product of what it was intended for. And force is voltage. Force is heat. Force is pressure. Force is the archetypal aspect of accomplishing work. You see, photons take the shape of a force or a form, a masculine or feminine aspect. I've covered this in some of my other material, but the idea is the masculine and feminine aspects of the photon are in disequilibrium. We have a division in perspectives, there's disequilibrium. We have a difference in pressures, there's disequilibrium. A difference of, I think I said perspectives, a difference in extremes, dark and light, cold and hot, masculine and feminine, good versus evil. By perspective, what we hold to be good is what we hold to be valuable. What we hold to be evil is that which is in direct opposition to what we hold to be valuable. And that's what is governing consciousness on this planet right now. It's thermodynamics. Where there's a disequilibrium in what is unified in the form, what brings a state of unification or state of peace. Wherever there's a dichotomy of pressure or an opposition to what brings peace, there is conflict, magnetic conflict. And basically you have a storm. You have heat chasing cold. You have man who's chasing woman. You have the light that chases the dark. That's why the light considers the dark to be wicked. The term wicked comes from wick, which is essentially the idea of something that entangles. And when there are a division of perspectives, that perspective, or each one of those perspectives, tends to be lured by the values contained within it. They're opposite. They're lured by the opposition to that which they hold valuable, each form. And there's so much I really want to say about force and form, because all things we see are a product of force and form. It's a product of the masculine and feminine attributes of the universe. And the photon taking the shape of force or form, it's taking the shape of either masculine or feminine to create itself in the universe, to create the universe, the material aspect of the universe, or to urge it into motion. All things that hold heat are considered vessels, and thus they're feminine, even the form, even our form, both masculine and feminine, both men and women. And we also contain force, or the ability to channel force, which is the masculine aspect. It's our ability to accomplish our will. And when you have this division of perspectives, it creates a magnetic conflict. And the only way to resolve that conflict is compromise. Thermodynamics has written the rules of conflict. And it says wherever there is a disequilibrium of pressure, there's going to be natural conflict until that pressure is equalized. But when you have a people, or even cells in a body, that are charged with the will to emit pressure all the time because of their polarity toward their masculine aspect, there is always going to be force within the unit, within the form, within the body, within Gaia, that needs to be it needs to be processed. It needs to go somewhere. This is the idea of sin, which is just another term for sine waves. It's the understanding the ancients had for the process of all the processes of the universe, thermodynamics, of what light is doing when it is building itself, when it's in harmony, when it's in conflict, when it's in chaos, how it keeps the balance. There's a balance that always needs to be kept. And that balance, when you break it all down to the most common spiritual denominator or physical denominator, it's an incongruence in pressures within a form. Inflammation, storm systems, whirlpools. You see time. You see an event in time where heat is moving to play itself out, to find its rest within a form so that pressure is equalized. And this is essentially the masculine aspect of the photon seeking equilibrium within its form, within all of its creations. And all of consciousness follows this pattern, and it's governed by thermodynamics. It's governed by wherever there's a depletion of heat, heat needs to move. It needs to move to fill in the void. It needs to move to fill in the gap. Wherever it perceives a vacuum or a lack thereof, heat moves. And it behaves the same way in all of physics, in a material way and in a quantum way. It governs the way we think. Where we perceive there to be dark, we align ourselves with our values, which we consider to be of the light, and we engage the darkness. Even if it's just in an argument, it's magnetic conflict. And it gets to be too much, it creates war, foments chaos. And so the man and the woman, the masculine and feminine, are always at war. And it's been this way all the way back to the time the Jews, Semites, should I say, marked the time of creation. They were marking the time when consciousness, there was a split. Something happened. There was a division within masculine and feminine principles. And it had a lot to do with the magnetic sphere of the planet. It was the age of Gemini, it's about 6,000 years ago. They count between now and then to be about 5,800 years, roughly 6,000 years, which is the same length of time. Many scientists now in the plasma physics community are marking to be the last magnetic excursion. Something happened back then. It was based on the sun. The sun and the planet communicate. They're living beings and they speak. You know, when people are looking at the Schumann resonance, they're looking at the intelligence of Gaia. We being cells within Gaia's form, when there is disequilibrium, she utilizes us to process the disequilibrium and pressure. As I mentioned in a previous video, we are made of water and the solid, the earth element, which is basically photons in an actual solid state or a water, a flowing state. It's form, or the feminine aspect of the photon incarnate. And these elements being the receptive elements, we receive a signal from Gaia. And when there is a disequilibrium of pressure, Gaia utilizes us by path of least resistance to be the bearers of that pressure. And so when there's pressure in the magnetic torus of Gaia, or the form, her energetic form, it plays out through us. We get the fighting and the conflict and the urge to seek what we are in direct polar opposite of. And that's men. You know, they get the urge to play out their frustration, and they tend to do so sexually, through sexual conquest. They do so through woman, or a receptive form, a form that is receptive to their pressure, their dominance, their, I say men, us, and even within women too. When we are under pressure, it forces us to do something. Men tend to be creatures of the ego. You know, fire, Aries, the ego. We're more aligned with fire and air, so we're more polarized toward our masculine half. So when we feel a rise in pressure, it causes us to do something. We got to fix something. We got to fight something. We got to F something, right? Screw something. We're forced to engage a form to receive our power, for us to discharge this energy, to accomplish something, which justifies our existence, justifies the ego, magnifies the ego. When that force is constantly channeled outward, and that's the problem. So we haven't learned to channel our force inward, back toward the form, like the sun. The ancients worshipped Leo. I say the ancients, the last of the ancient civilizations was, one of the last was Egypt. The divine civilizations that understood how the physics of our reality ties into the metaphysics, into the alchemical physics, the spiritual physics, how the universe was laid out, and how the will of light was accomplished through the processes of thermodynamics. They knew that through the zodiac, they were observing the force of Leo as the arc at the height of a sine wave, representing power available from a state of rest, or power that has no opposition, no resistance to it, like the relationship between our planet and the sun, or the relationship between our forms and the sun. They worshipped the lion because cats are symbolic of the fusion of grace, beauty, and power. I mentioned this in another video. It's as if they're power available from a state of rest, but it's about there being a grace and a beauty and a wisdom and a temperance of that power, where it's not playing itself out. It's not releasing its own heat, because to release your heat is to die. Sine waves, time, the releasing of heat is what causes death. It's atomic death. So when we're always releasing our heat, we're actually dying. We're sining. And we are, right now, because of the weakening of our magnetic field, which takes place over time, receptive to pressure extremes, because we're releasing our heat to outer space with a weakening magnetic field. And so we're more sensitive to the pressure we're receiving from the sun and the luminaries. Gaia's protective field is no longer keeping that assault from heaven at bay. And so she receives this magnetic current within her form, and all things feel it. You know? Which is why you have this direct congruence between a rise in the passions of people now, which is dragging us into war. And I know there are a lot of people who feel like this is just part of a natural cycle. This is something bigger. We're entering into a phase of time which is bigger and more important than any prior to it in the last 12,000 years. This is a major cycle where something big happens. And this amplification of pressure that's coming into this field, Gaia's magnetic field, is causing us to respond in kind with violence toward anything that we're in direct opposition to. So if I hold the values of, if I have a value system, and it can be based on anything, it's usually based on the religion system or the political system that I grew up with, that was given to me, or that I chose for whatever reason. Based on my value system, those qualities, those habits that allow me to get through my day, that allow me to feel successful based on my environment, based on what I like or what I've chosen to like. Wherever I perceive there to be an opposition to that is where I have projected the devil, projected the qualities of darkness. And right now, with the amplification of light and pressure, we're seeing a division in pressure extremes between dichotomies. So it appears to the masses, to the people, as if the devil himself has manifested. And wherever the devil has manifested, it's going to lure our attention. It'll entangle us. It's wicked. It'll cause us to fix our attention toward the enemy, the adversary, the rebellious one, who by friction and resistance to our value system creates heat. This is why the devil is always seen as a creature of darkness, who is referred to as the adversary and the rebellious one, and a creature of heat, extreme heat. Has more to do with the relationship on the sine wave between the angles of Capricorn and or the Baphomet, and or the angle where there is greatest resistance for light traveling in a cycle, or the angle where there is simply just the greatest resistance for force moving in a toroidal pattern to complete its circuit. The relationship between Capricorn and Sagittarius. You have this from the floor, or the opposition to Cancer and Leo, and Aquarius and Capricorn. But I intend to cover all that in other videos if I ever have an opportunity to do the mystery school. The heat of Sagittarius, which is, ascribed alchemically to sulfur, and the archetypal restriction of the light in opposition to the descending force, which is the force of least resistance from voltage. It's that which seeks to contain the light or to slow it down. It represents an angle on an ecliptic Capricorn where there is greatest resistance to force. If you line the zodiac the right way, you'll have Cancer and Leo at the top, which represents, from our ecliptic, from our perspective, the heavens. Because the sun is at its strength at the 12 o'clock position, which is the 90-degree angle position of Cancer in the summertime, and Leo. But it also archetypally represents the height of a sine wave and the height of a value system, because value is written into everything in physics through the sine wave, through the physics of the sine wave. We have the height of the sine wave, which is where there is least resistance to force, which is where force has an opportunity to accomplish its will without much fear of the power of the adversary, which is resistance incarnate. It's the shadow aspect of force, because there is resistance in the planet. And I'm going all over the place here, but what I'm trying to describe is this resistance, the power of this resistance grows more and more every 2,000 years when we cross into another zodiac sign. When we move into a new age, we find our proximity to the angle of Cancer and Leo. We find that the magnetic field weakens, and that the planet is subject to hot and cold extremes more affluently, if that's the right term. And in an environment, in a magnetic torus or magnetic or hermetic field where there is a greater division between hot and cold, you have a greater division between pressure extremes. And so we, being creatures playing out the activities of the elements, playing out the behavior of voltage and the behavior of pressure in this system, we tend to act more violently. We become more passionate, but impassioned toward anger and violence, because when there's greater distance between dichotomies and there's a greater gulf between the two of them and their ability to come together to compromise, that distance creates for greater impact when those two opposites come together. So as time goes on and our magnetic field weakens, we're finding our ability to align with the qualities of goodness that we naturally ascribe to goodness or holisticness or wholesomeness, the qualities that would provide the body with the optimal resistance to function by, or provide society with the optimal conditions to function through, or to provide Gaia with the optimal environment to sustain life. We find greater chaos. We find greater conflict, greater division between masculine and feminine principles. We find the need for war, the need to resolve things by force, the need to suppress that which is weak, not only outside of us, but within us. We find that need grows. And so in the age of Aquarius, we're actually descending further from that which we hold archetypally to be the optimal conditions for sustaining our better qualities, for sustaining the golden state, sustaining life without the resistance that requires us to act or evolve or to change in some way. And this is why in the age of Aquarius, if you've looked around and noticed, with the intensity of these storms and with the quickness men are to engage in fighting or war, or the lack of love or empathy in people, we're reaching a point where we are forced to change, or we're going to destroy each other. And by proximity, we'll destroy society. We'll destroy this planet. Everything that that represents a system functioning in homeostasis will begin to break down. So we're required to move back toward the age of Leo. And the only way to do that is to fix the magnetic web. You got a lot of people now who are, they've taken on the qualities of the antibodies of Gaia, meaning they see something wrong and they've been motivated to do something about it. They really don't know what to do about it. You know, we've had this renaissance where we've recognizing the imbalance within us, looking to resolve that imbalance within us. We've sought out through spirituality. We've branched out and learned about other forms of spirituality to break down our barriers, to break our resistance from, you know, what challenges us or makes us uncomfortable. And so there's been this renaissance where, you know, in the spiritual community, people have sought answers outside of the bounds and the forbidden areas, those places that they were always taught by their religions and their parents and who were more conservative than we, to be, you know, the realm of the devil, you know, Buddhism or Hinduism. You know, many of us have begun to notice a similarity between religions, that they all have a piece of the pie, but they're all preaching love. They're professing this love, this unity that brings civilization together, that allows it to function as a cohesive whole. But many of these folk in this spiritual community are shepherds, or they've taken on the role of shepherds, or taken on the role of antibodies. Those who find the light in others and they raise that light, they raise the voltage, they raise the passion or the desire for life within people. And it's by their activities that those who are aligned with darkness are more identified, are easier to identify, should I say. But my concern is the majority of these people, how they've been mobilized to do something about our collective plight, but they really don't know what to do. And I feel that they've settled into a form of sort of apathy, where the current interpretation of prophecy, or the amalgamated interpretation of prophecy, you know, the middle point between all of these religions teaching this love and this unity, it didn't exactly explain how we're supposed to achieve homeostasis from a state of conflict. And so many feel that it's more important to take inaction, to take a form, to become inert, lukewarm, and do nothing, but go within. Because they've been taught that by going within, they seek peace and equilibrium, which is partially true. But we cannot inherit a world that is still subject. We cannot inherit a perfect world that is still subject to the violence of space weather and the rise in voltage in the land that normally utilizes us to process its violence, its inner pressure, its inner turmoil. We can't expect this world to correct the imbalance itself when we are the living agents of this system that are charged with the responsibility of fixing the problem, of behaving as the cells within Gaia. It's not just within ourselves, what I'm trying to say, that we're to seek this equilibrium, but we're also to achieve this balanced state within the form of Gaia. She's not going to do it herself. She will do it herself, but it'll happen after a massive breakdown in things, a destruction unlike we've seen in over 12,000 years. She'll achieve a natural equilibrium within her form of pressure, but she'll have destroyed most of us in the process. And we being cells, we can come back. You know, all things living on this planet can be recreated. But if we don't want to inherit a world where most all of life has died because we failed to change or to address the issue of our dying magnetic web, then we have to act out. We have to do something. We have to fix the problem. Because if we do nothing and we simply go within, as many are proclaiming is our only responsibility to fix our own houses, we will achieve that state of peace within ourselves, but this planet will still die, or at least go through this destructive cycle that causes extreme correction of pressure. And once the pressure is corrected and most of the heat is gone because the warring factions within humanity and the destruction of those who are polarized toward the masculine aspect, emitting force and casting out sine waves and broadcasting their pressure into the field constantly, there will be a massive culling of that masculine force, and those who are predisposed to acting out their frustrations in a violent way. When that heat and that pressure is gone, what we'll have is an environment that looks like a cold, dark wasteland. Once pressure corrects the way it's supposed to on this planet with such a weakened magnetic field, it will look cold and barren. And that's not the land we were promised. That's not the fulfillment of prophecy, the beautiful promise that we were given by our ancestors and our guides and you know, these celestial forces that are concerned with the proper state of energy, of flowing energy within this planet. There are higher forces, higher intelligences that are waiting for us to stabilize light on this planet so that their voice, their subtle influence can filter through in a more profound way, in a way that can be felt and interfaced with, so that they can take hold of this planet. We have to, it's sort of like a fish tank. That may be a terrible example to use, but I'm sort of at a loss for words, because I really wish to communicate the necessity for action on our behalf, on our part, to do something about the real problem on this planet. And it has nothing to do with Republicans, Democrats, or black people, or white people, or Asians, or Middle Easterners, or people who are opposed through their religious beliefs. It is the natural opposition that we have toward what we consider to be our opposite, but it's exacerbated because of pressure from space. There's pressure in the land from the voltage of space being fed to us from the luminaries and the sun, and it's within Gaia's magnetic field, and we're receptive to it, we're sensitive to it, and it's urging us toward action. And wherever we are urged toward action is typically where we are, where we find the need, the need for the greatest action. It's, you know, our, it's based on what seeks to undo us, or wherever we consider there to be resistance from our homeostatic conditions. It's that which we hold to be in opposition to those conditions that we are engaged to fight, to eliminate the adversary, eliminate that which seeks to deplete our heat so that we can continue on in homeostasis. This is the behavior that causes people to stock up on things, you know, food and supplies or whatever it is they need to continue living in optimal conditions. It's just a perceived imbalance in energetic states. It's the idea of having of abundance and scarcity. It's the difference between abundance and scarcity, and where we perceive there to be the force of scarcity, or the force that seeks to undo us, angramanyo, is where we perceive there to be the devil, or the opposer, or the conditions that need to be surmounted or overcome. And it really has, it's the planet processing the energetic pressure fed to it from space, from bodies in outer space. If we can manage to kill that pressure, the fish tank of Gaia will stabilize. The natural tendency of human beings will be to seek peace, to seek equilibrium. They'll take on the energetic state of light, operating in a hermetic field that is sealed off from an attack, a pressurized attack, or an attack of pressure from external sources. If we can seal this magnetic atmosphere, we will stop people from wanting to, we will condition light to naturally find its equilibrium. If that makes any sense. Light will begin to naturally find its equilibrium. And so the cells which receive the signal from Gaia, us, we're the cells, and every living thing on this planet will receive the same signal. We'll have a natural gravity toward peace and unity and unification, a natural gravity with a lack of resistance due to lack of pressure extremes toward the marriage of energetic extremes, if that makes any sense. I really just wanted to get this out because I'm watching this coronavirus. You know, you think of corona, it's related to the sun. The name behind this is no coincidence. This coronavirus is about the sun. It's about the death of our proximity to the sun, or the death of the influence of the sun, which is the value of Leo, or the alchemical, the manifested aspect of Leo, incarnate. It is the death of the influence of that force, that archetypal force within us, energetically, behaviorally, you know, psychologically. And of course, we'll also see it in the land. We'll see it as a barren landscape. You think, you take this body called Gaia and you strip that which archetypally ascribes the values of a value. Leo, that which is archetypally or rather symbolically associated with the height of a sine wave or force available without resistance. What we ascribe to be valuable is, or the nature of value is more or less based on a thing's ability to evolve, or a thing's ability to hold voltage, to hold value, to hold what feeds us, or to hold what sustains passion, what sustains life, what sustains beauty. That is value. That is what is represented by the height of a sine wave. It's pure force that is that's available for the taking by all that need it, all that is deficient in its reward, its goodliness, its sustenance. We're supposed to naturally be able to take in the power of the sun, uninhibited, into our forms. And our forms are designed to do something with that electrical force, but we can't experience that under the conditions we're currently living in, with the magnetic web always subject to changes in pressure, such violent changes in pressure due to pressure extremes, due to a weakened magnetic state. Our magnetic torus is weakened because the magnetic torus of the planet is weakened. So we're not able to embody the archetypal qualities of value with the magnetic web in the state it's in. If we fix the web of the planet, we fix our own magnetic toruses. We fix the way light behaves within the planet. We fix the way light behaves within us. We have to put God everywhere. God is light. God is within the light. God is the natural state, the natural desire of light to accomplish something. And, within a vacuum, you can see what light wants to do. It wants to equalize. It wants to stabilize. It wants to spread itself thin over darkness so that there's really no more darkness. But based on the amount of light that went into, that was diffused, the light itself, the brightness of the light may diminish, but then there is no more darkness. There's a marriage between the light and the dark. You strike a match in the middle of a large dark room. It may not perfectly brighten the room, but it illuminates it, right? It diffuses itself over the expanse. That is the will of light. It wants to seek equilibrium. We won't let it. Or rather, we have to create the environment, the hermetically sealed environment that's sealed off from external forces, so that the light that we capture from the sun can diffuse itself in a perfect way, so that the elements can play out in a perfect way, so that they can also play out in a perfect way within us. I don't know if I'm making any sense. I hope that makes sense. I'll meditate on it and see if there's anything. Oh, I was mentioning about this coronavirus. It represents the death of the solar aspect, or the aspect of Leo within this form. And we're supposed to, from the, if you look at the sign chart, I believe I covered this previously, we're at a unique time. And in the Bible, they mentioned how we would have an opportunity in this age of Aquarius to move to the upper room. We're to follow this person, this incarnated being who understands the values of Leo, or the zodiacal system, the wheel of creation. It's just a blueprint for how all of creation unfolds. We're to learn this science of how we cross the boundary between, and we move out of the Aquarian timeline, which is moving in toward Capricorn, which is the worst age of them all. It's the most harsh age, where there's the greatest dichotomy, the greatest distance between light and dark principles. And so there's the greatest conflict and the greatest need for strength absolute strength to overcome resistance. And that requires men, it requires a massive polarity shift toward the masculine power to constantly be in a state where it is able to overcome resistance. And this creates for a perfect military, a perfect tyrannical system, a perfect environment where there is the absolute overcoming of weakness. That means whoever is considered to be weak, they have no purpose. They're cattle. They're fodder in that world. You know, those who continue on in that timeline are they're either strong or they're meat. I feel really bad for anyone continuing along in that timeline. We were told to move into the house of Aquarius, or follow this Aquarian person into the house and then move into the upper room. And that represents Cancer and Leo. We're to move back toward that age by stabilizing magnetism on this planet. That's what we have to do. I believe the Hopi have a prophecy, or there's a Native American tribe with a prophecy, probably the White Buffalo prophecy, where they're referring to the stabilizing of pressure in the cow, the divine cow, the magnetic Taurus of this planet. And we do that by utilizing gold. We have to fix current in this planet. God is within the light. We have to strengthen the light everywhere so that it's not moving around seeking to diffuse itself where there is an energetic dichotomy or a difference in pressures, so that heat no longer chases the cold, because there is no more cold. We have to have humidity and heat everywhere. And that will amplify light in a perfect way that isn't seeking to play itself out. There is no sin, no sine waves, no death, no atomic death. Because there is no release of heat. There is no death of heat through friction between extremes when they're trying to come together. If that makes sense. We do that by putting the gold back into the atmosphere. There was a scripture that mentions there is one calling in the wilderness about putting God everywhere, making a path for him, making a straight path for him to come down. It's essentially the sun. The sun is the ultimate, it's the incarnated aspect of consciousness itself. It's what consciousness comes from. It's our fatherly aspect, or it's the marriage of force and form. It is the god and the goddess married. But broadcasting its masculine power, it feeds us. It sustains itself, but feeds us so that we can mimic it. We can become more like it. And we do so by utilizing its alchemical mineral the gold essentially is the sun in mineral form. Gold is what is ascribed to Leo. This is why the Egyptians put gold everywhere. They ate it, they drank with it, they put it in their bodies. They utilized all the noble metals so that their forms would receive the light, and in a perfect field, or a field that was less dichotomized of its heat and cold extremes, that light could act through them in a more natural way, in a way that was more in accordance with the will of the universe, or the will of light to accomplish a task. The will of light to stabilize itself and create and crystallize into a form where masculine and feminine principles, that which urges and that which receives, the voltage and the vessel, are perfectly married. And then as we achieve that homeostasis of light and the elements in the planet, it acts the same way through us. We naturally become peaceful. We naturally find abundance. The planet moves back to a garden. We move back to the age of magnetism, where light behaves in a very peculiar way, a way that we ascribe to the time of mythology, where there are magical creatures and possibly even magic, and our ability to wield light and magnetism and heat in ways that we can only dream of right now. We have to fix light on the planet. We have to seal the fish tank of Gaia, seal the window, fix the magnetic web. And it changes everything. Everything else is just rearranging chairs on the Titanic, on the deck of the Titanic, right? It's what's the point of addressing our social issues when the planet's dying? What's the point of all these wars? What's the point in our fixing the problems with our neighbor, or addressing the rafter, is it, in the eye of our brother? When there's a larger work that needs to be done. And yes, while it also requires us to fix our own houses, it definitely requires us to undo the damage caused to this planet. And the ultimate act is by sealing the magnetic web. Once that's sealed off, we can begin, the Titanic is patched. And then we can get the repainting and all that. Until then, there's really no point in addressing the social issues, addressing the economic issues, the religious issues. They're all a product of sin, of the depletion of heat, of atomic death, of light playing itself out because there is cold that's constantly drawing heat. I hope that makes sense. I'll try to put out another video at some point, and I know I belabor this. I have no idea how long this video is. I'll try to edit it to make it short, because there's really so much more to say, and my lips have sort of been sealed, and I'm not sure if it's just due to lack of inspiration, but I really feel a major lack of support. There are many who feel that I have some really good answers, but they do nothing really to help me. And all I really require is for this message to be passed around. Just spread the message that there is something more, and something within our power that we are expected to do, and that we have the ability to do, to fix all the problems in this planet. It bypasses all the small little petty conflicts that we keep creating because we keep spotting the devil, who is the opposition to our values everywhere, within each other. Wherever we find evidence of that which opposes our values is where we project the devil. But there's an easy way to get rid of him, and we bind him for 1,000 years as we move and continue on through the zodiac and move back into the age of perfect magnetism, the age of Leo and Cancer. That's the real secret of the lion's paw. Yet the secret of the Sphinx, to the right of the Sphinx underneath his paw is the angle of Cancer. It's the 90-degree angle. That's the angle, you take a crab. Crab has an outer shell that is at a 90-degree angle, and it provides the perfect diffusion of force from a descending angle. That's why the crab moves at a 90-degree angle. It likes to walk backwards or sideways because it's mimicking the virtues of Cancer, which is the 90-degree angle. But it's also the angle where the sun is at its greatest peak, it's at its greatest height, and there is least resistance to its power by all things, and the time when summer is at its strength, and all things benefit from it, from its voltage. We put that goal back up there, and that's what we get. We get the golden age. I really need help. I was counting on a blessing a while ago, and I know there is one coming. And I feel like it may have been contingent upon my speaking out of what is needed. But I also felt that there was a suppressing force, and it may have been, thermodynamically, it may have been that which opposes me, which is written in my natal chart. It's written in my energetic anatomy that I have Saturn in the aspect where I am to speak and engage in war by speaking the details of my needs, or the needs that I hold to be of high value. That's mystery school stuff. Anyway, what I'm trying to say is, I don't know if another video is going to be coming out anytime soon. I'm really finding this suppression of my inspiration to be extremely challenging. But I feel I have answers that may benefit everyone. I'm not looking for personal glorification. I'm really just looking for a conversation to be started about something else we can do except meditate and hope it all turns out for the best. Because in that timeline, the world breaks down and you get drawn into the New World Order, and they're going to utilize all their drones and their, this coronavirus. I strongly feel that there's a nanotech aspect to this. They're going to use all these secret things that they've been planning for the last, God knows how long, to draw those folks in who've chosen apathy into the New World Order, and they'll function as slaves. There's a movie called Elysium. If you haven't seen it, you should check it out. It looks like what the world is probably expected to look like when the elite break away, they merge with machines, and when they merge with machines, they'll no longer be subject to the karma of the atomic rhythm, the karma that naturally corrects the imbalances in thermodynamics. They'll take on a consciousness that functions by its own rules. And in that environment, we'll move into the timeline of Capricorn, where those with authority will be commissioned by thermodynamics to operate with impunity and to suppress all weakness. In that atmosphere, they're allowed to be as bad as they want to be for a time. They'll drag people into a hell on earth where there's the ultimate act in humility and humiliation, until over time they meet their end and receive their karma. But within that timeline, you'll have people who are dragged into this New World Order system where all their thoughts and actions, their desires are monitored and changed and governed by an artificially intelligent being that is rules by what is logical. It won't have a soul. Won't care about love. That love, unity, homeostasis will be based on the rules that it writes. It won't be based on what's good for the form, for the living form. It will change humanity. You don't want to get dragged into that timeline. You may find a cave you can hide in for a little while, but consider the world you'll inherit once the dust settles. You may survive what's coming. You may survive the extreme earth changes, or the shortage in food, or the sickly masses, the throngs of suffering souls seeking seeking security, seeking peace, who are willing to hand over their freedom to receive it. But you'll live on the fringes of a society that will eventually label you as a deplorable, a dissident, something, a devil, as an opposition, a resistance. And the technology they'll soon be demonstrating behind this New World Order will be unlike anything you've ever seen or dreamed of. They're light years ahead in their technology. You won't escape it long. You'll have no cell phone. You won't be able to buy or sell. Everything will be tracked. You won't be able to utilize your gold or your silver like you think you are. We're going to inherit a system that has been modeled after China's system, which is a social credit system. You'll be identified. Everything you do, everywhere you go, everything you desire, everything you hate will be cataloged, and you'll be treated accordingly. You don't want to inherit that time. Please help me get this word out. contact me. I have an Instagram page. I have a Facebook page under my name, Kasim, Kahsim, Villanova, Villanova. And I believe my Instagram page is similar to this YouTube handle, just Arc Shiloh or Arc of Shiloh. I'm not looking at it at the moment, but I believe that's what it is. We don't have a lot of time. Time, if you've noticed, has changed. Saturn is the arbiter of time. And Saturn in its current position is amplifying the light. It's restricting it. It's amplifying it through restriction. So it's causing us to notice things, to become more clear, more aware of things we once ignored, of what is easily ignored when life moves too fast. We're dealing with a focused light due to restriction. A restriction of the light is slowing it down, and so it appears that time is being altered in some way. For some, it feels that a single event may take forever, but when you look back, it looks like it happened too fast. Our perception of time has changed because of the location of Saturn relative to our planet, and also relative to the ecliptic, relative to the point in time we've arrived at, which is the end of this 12,000 year cycle. We're experiencing the end of a cycle within a cycle within a cycle within a cycle. The clock is resetting. And there are those who will move into one timeline and others who will move into another timeline. We have a choice of where we'll go, but choosing an action won't get us into the timeline of the golden age. Don't listen to those folk who would have you run and hide in a cave and hope that it turns out for the best. We need to be figuring out what to do about it right now while we have the ability to communicate. Leave a comment below. Let me know what you think. I'll try to get another video out at some point. Thank you.